Hey everyone, welcome to Sociastrology. Today we're going to talk about a very rare triple conjunction that we're going to be having get closer and closer and closer together throughout Sagittarius season. And then it's going to come to a point in Capricorn season where the Sun and Venus and Mars will all be conjunct very, very closely. And this is something that surprisingly doesn't happen that often. So the dates that I have on this in terms of a conjunction within a degree of each other for the Sun and Venus and Mars, I have this taking place in October of 2006. I have the time before that being August of 1987. And then pay attention to these two dates if you are interested in political history at all. April of 1981, and then June of 1968, if Reagan and Bobby Kennedy have any sort of kind of significance to you. We're going to talk about that in a moment here, but this is a very rare alignment. I will also say the last time that we had this triple conjunction so close in Capricorn, we would have to go back to the year 810. So 9th century, we would have to go back to in order to see this kind of an alignment. So this is going to be pretty exciting to see how this winds up playing out. It's a major concentration of energy. And as I mentioned, this alignment, it's going to come to a point in Capricorn, but it's going to come closer and closer throughout Sagittarius season. And Mercury's also going to start imparting its influence upon this triple conjunction later in its development. And this is basically representing an incredibly strong and impassioned concentration of energies that we'll be experiencing collectively, globally, and personally throughout this winter in the Northern Hemisphere season. So on a personal level, this is going to emphasize two houses in our charts for all of us. And we're going to bring this through the houses and look at where those two are, because we're going to get a bit of a 1-2 punch in terms of a huge concentration on one area of your life and then moving into specifically another area of your life as we get more into January. So we'll look at that as well. But on the collective and global level, it's going to be emphasizing the themes of Sagittarius and Capricorn quite a bit. So it's important to keep in mind with this kind of an alignment, whenever we're dealing with multiple planets, more than two, this isn't necessarily speaking to one specific date when things go exact. It's more of these energies and vibes that we're working with, which are going to come in a series of flows here. And this alignment from Sagittarius into Capricorn, I'm going to show that to you now. It's going to in turn flow into a quintuple conjunction of the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Pluto in the very first degrees of Aquarius. And we're going to cover that specific alignment in a different video because it's such a mind-blowing energy, which is quite distinct from these three in this lighter-hearted, passionate way, moving through specifically Sagittarius and then Capricorn here. It's a very distinctive, different kind of an energy that we'll be dealing with in Aquarius season. Now, I do also want to point out these three are going to be making two very distinctive alignments to other planets as well. So as they're moving through late Sagittarius, which is going to be about the 8th to the 24th of December of this year, we're going to start getting these guys coming through this area, one after another. We're going to see a square that they are making to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that is in Pisces. Now, for one thing, all of this is going to be ruled by Jupiter. So it's speaking to this Jupiter, which we have in retrograde right now, and we're going to look at that as well. But there's a great amount of pressure in that December, especially that mid-December timeframe, a huge amount of pressure and passion applied to the really pressing need to release outmoded narratives and structures, institutions, and even some norms within society. So this could wind up revealing some cracks within any social systems, be they economic, governmental, institutional, cultural, sociological. The whole narrative framework of our societies is turning over in this year and next year. And this is going to be one of those major pressure points to where it's applying that pressure behind the cracks that are already forming. So that's one thing I really want to point out here. There's an awareness with those planets looking at that Saturn-Neptune conjunction from a square. They're scrutinizing it. And they're also probably arguing over it a little bit as well. Again, we're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty with this, but I want to cover this from a kind of high-level view first. So there's an awareness then of the contradiction within these systems. And there's also then a collective drive to try to confront them with that square. And this may wind up resulting on some level in some anger, in some passions flaring, in some conflict, in some breakdowns, in some crises. And this is going to be a global thing. So it's not going to be a total breakdown necessarily. I hope not anyway. I don't think, and let me put it that way, that this is going to be a total breakdown, across the board or something like huge disaster necessarily, but there is a lot of conflict there. So we're going to look at that one a little closer. And then also under the oppositions to Jupiter then that are going to be made, notice how much closer these dates are together, around the 8th to the 13th of January of 2026. So now we're getting these 3, 1, 2, 3, much closer together. And we can see that one in this image here. And with the oppositions to Jupiter, there can be a major overextension of initiatives. So there's a lot of enthusiasm and dedication to building new and better ordered, better serving systems based in ideals, in values, in compassion, care, community. But there will potentially also be some bitterness over how to control or direct these initiatives, how to structure them basically for the long term. So there will be some wrangling around the narratives on the front end, big time. And then how do we make this function better? How do we make these systems actually serve people? And this can be on a governmental level. This can be on an international level even. This can be on a workplace level as well. This can be when it comes to our family structures and things like that as well. The outmoded beliefs are falling away. And we're needing to grapple with, what are we going to build in its place that's going to be better then? And that's going to be a major emphasis as well, as we have a lot of this taking place where Jupiter is going to be ruling this whole square as it's building up here, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius. It also rules Pisces. And so we have a huge amount of planets that are ruled by that Jupiter there. And with that Jupiter in Cancer, it's focusing quite a bit on, again, how do we take care of each other? How do we focus on the needs of the collective? How do we focus on maintaining a sense of growth? How do we push ourselves forward in a way that is much more compassionate maybe than what we've been working with up until this point? And again, that's going to be a lot more long lasting. There can be a bit of nativism and nationalism and things like this that wind up coming up with Jupiter in Cancer. So that may be one of the edges that we wind up seeing here, especially with the Mars square to Saturn, both ruled by that Jupiter in Cancer. But we'll look at this on a global level in a moment here. So on a personal level, we will in turn be confronted by our self-limiting beliefs and outdated structures we've allowed to serve beyond their purpose. And then having addressed these under that square, or at least considered them, working through the process of identifying the growth areas, which we can sustainably apply our dedicated effort toward. So what is that long-term vision there? I do want to reemphasize before we get into this more, this is very passionate. These are planets that have to do more so with our day-to-day lives and our energies, our desires, what it is that we're wanting, what it is that we like, what it is that we're frustrated by. And so it's going to be working on those passionate energies of ours. So I would say perhaps like solar plexus chakra in particular, working on that kind of energy here. With all of that said, we're going to get into it. If you don't mind giving the video a thumbs up or hype, I would really greatly appreciate it. But let's go ahead and dive into this. So let's talk some dates real quick, just in case you're wanting them, just in case you're wanting to keep track of this, feel free to screenshot it. We have them all entering Sagittarius. We have Mars has already entered Sagittarius. On the 22nd of November, we have the sun entering Sagittarius, which is ushering in Sagittarius season. And then we have on the 30th of November of 2025, we have Venus entering Sagittarius. So now we have them all co-present in Sagittarius, and they're getting closer and closer and closer throughout that period of time. We then have on the 15th of December, Mars will enter Capricorn. On the 21st of December, the sun will enter Capricorn, ushering in Capricorn season. And then on the 24th of December, Christmas in Germany, Christmas Eve in a lot of different countries, Venus will wind up entering Capricorn. And again, those are going to get closer and closer and closer together until they hit this kind of critical point around the 6th of January through the 9th of January of 2026, where they're really getting super, super close. So on the 6th of January of 26, we get the exact conjunction of the sun with Venus at 16 degrees of Capricorn. By the time these three get to 18 degrees of Capricorn, on the 8th of January, Venus will conjoin Mars. And then on the 9th of January, 2026, they're at 19 degrees of Capricorn, and the sun has now then conjunct Mars. And then this winds up wrapping up as they move into Aquarius. Venus is going to do that on the 17th of January of 2026, that should say. I apologize for that. And then on the 20th of January, the sun will enter Aquarius, starting Aquarius season. And on the 23rd, then Mars is entering Aquarius. So notice how the sun and Venus have overtaken Mars. And that's these conjunctions here by the time we get to Aquarius season. And Mercury will very much be in the mix at the end of this, and this is going to set up that quintuple conjunction of 5 planets right in those first degrees of Aquarius on the other side of this. So on the collective level, what is it basically that we're going to be dealing with here energetically? Passions are going to be running super high collectively. Personally, we're going to be really driven throughout this period of time. There may be this sense of acting on passions as well. So we may find that we are a little bit more impulsive, even when this is in Capricorn. That is such a concentration of energies. We may be deciding in a split moment what we're trying to initiate, what it is that we're trying to kick off and that we want to wind up running with for a while. So this could be feeling like we are rallying around a passion or a feeling. There's a lot of strong courage and manifestation, a lot of really deliberate and meaningful action when these three are getting together. And the valuation aspect of Venus might get overblown. So what do I mean by that? We may see the numbers like bubble numbers, bubbles expanding more even. Something like this, where the valuation of things is going through the roof, possibly the prices. But I would expect that this is more along the lines of where we're seeing the issues of like stocks and maybe even crypto or something like that, or again, housing or something along those lines. The valuation is getting really, really, really amped up here. So on the other hand, this is generally a lot of energies coming together and channeling in one direction. So a huge, strong enthusiasm as we're going through Sagittarius season. That's going to turn into a major determination when we get into Capricorn season then, and a really massive emphasis on both of those areas. So massive emphasis on the enthusiasm, the stirring of passions and the excitement, the adventurousness, the willingness to take risks and things like that we're feeling as this comes together in Sagittarius, then moving into that strong determination in Capricorn. This is also very expressive as well. So really intense impulses to express ourselves and to express the inspiration that's coming through to us. Again, perhaps especially depending on where this is in your houses, but perhaps especially when this is in Sagittarius and it's speaking directly to that Jupiter in Cancer, that can definitely be very inspired, even intuitively inspired, like the muse really coming through quite a bit and acting upon our creative impulses. So this could speak to, on a social collective level, like a new aesthetic or a new creative kind of a movement, a creative, even political statements being really high visibility and really resonating quite strongly as well. And this, along with some of the other alignments that we're going to see in the coming year, this does speak to something of a cultural renaissance. This does speak to periods of time in the past where we've stepped into a new kind of style. So new genres and things like this coming up that are enlivening the culture after some period of malaise. So we could also wind up seeing then with these passions running super high and this kicking off kind of energy that these carry as well, new social movements or new ways of doing political organization or social or community organization. High motivation is going to be really helpful, I think, for a lot of us, especially after we've been moving through Scorpio season. And it's been a lot of like dealing with the grand water trines and going deep and doing all this healing work and stuff like this, working on ourselves. This is really bringing up that motivation to act again. So we may wind up feeling very, very busy then with projects or activities, feeling very fired up, like increased energy as well. And one thing that I want to emphasize here, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to mention it to all the different signs too, is going to be that this increased energy or this feeling fired up, it could lead to burnout if we're not temperate or if we are not sustainably applying it. The fact that this is making two hard aspects to the two planets which tend to rule, those being Jupiter and Saturn, sustainability, like sustainable growth, sustainable application of energy. I think that we shouldn't overlook that little message that we're getting about how it is that we're utilizing our energies. We need to pace ourselves because this can also really push people to go way overboard with impulsivity, with vanity, with like over-identifying with either, again, social groups or identity groups, or even with ourselves, like kind of inflating egos, or there could be kind of cults of personality that are getting stirred up in some of the social movements that are starting. So I would really recommend keeping an eye on who it is that we're really looking up to. I think personal advice, I don't really recommend looking up to people that much, just generally speaking. It can lead to a lot of disappointment. But yeah, there is this kind of potential, especially among those inclined around delusions of grandeur. There's a huge amount of passionate rallying around that sun energy that we're dealing with here. That's one thing about this alignment that's really stood out to me, is just how long we have Venus and Mars on either side of the sun. And it does look to me like there's going to be a lot of pressure placed upon leadership. And this is getting a little bit more into the global stuff, but I'll just kind of point this out here. Like a lot of pressure on leadership, which could speak to crises of leadership and things like this, maybe scandals or something, maybe just like pressure to do this or that, or to step down or whatever it is. And again, keeping in mind that this is a global energy that we're dealing with, but also a rallying around is the way that this winds up looking to me when we have Venus and Mars being very passionate on either side of the sun. So that could feed into certainly some delusions of grandeur or some cults of personality, sweeping under the rug some of the impropriety, perhaps, of certain social figures. So this is also then going to be working on our collective will, desire, and action. So will being the sun, that desire being Venus, that action being Mars. Another way of looking at this would be vitality and harmony and drive, trying to pull all of those energies together and direct them in one direction. So action, magnetism toward what lights you up. So what is it that you're getting excited about? There's a really wonderful opportunity here to, for one thing, apply your energies effectively and to have a kind of endless supply of inspiration and motivation, not necessarily energy, because we are human beings, so we need to pace ourselves, but the inspiration and motivation will be there very strongly, but also the kind of collective magnetism around all different kinds of interests and hobbies and groupings and things like this. So I feel like there's also multiple parties here, and I don't mean that in the political sense, but like multiple people or like groups coming together around ideas or interests or things that light them up as well. So this can be a moment of kind of bringing the collective and the community back together too. There is a desire to be seen under this influence, and that doesn't have to go into delusions of grandeur. With some people it can. With other people, it's just going to be wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, wanting to be able to contribute. There's also a really intense response here to leaders, to causes, to icons. So intense was the word that I was looking for, is on the plus and the minus side. Hatred toward them, but also passion and support toward them as well. Also very helpful for magnetic and charismatic leadership. So again, that's great. That can help causes and things like this. But when we get a bit overboard with it, then sometimes we can wind up overinflating egos, getting people who then wind up leaning into bad behaviors because they think they're immune or special or something. And then we wind up needing to clean up after corrupted leaders and things like this. So something to kind of keep in mind there. Also, speaking to matters of connection with Venus and separation with Mars. So that energy can kind of be going hand in hand here and be very, very visible as to when that's happening. So this can be either constructive, it's probably going to be both, constructive and combustive as well. So there's an ignition point here, which can speak to a fresh start, but it can also speak to tensions, not just passions, but tensions building up as well. So there can be this kind of projection as well of what we love on others, possibly on solar figures, leaders. Also a projection of what we hate on certain solar figures. So again, that intensity of reaction to people that are getting attention around this time. Diplomacy, alliances are also with Venus involved. That's also going to be subject to really high emotion and drama. There may be some international scandals taking place around this time too, or coalition governments and things like this. Alliances on a national level in different countries. There's a real strong desire to build exciting connections under this influence. So connecting deeply with what you love and what inspires you, but also then connecting with like-minded people too. So this is going to help to spur on new ventures, alliances, interests, hobbies, and activities for all of us that are willing to step into it. It's actually kind of cool that we have this conjunction here and that we have it making these hard aspects to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction and then to Jupiter, because it's making it a little bit harder to ignore or to not take advantage of. When we're dealing with these hard aspects, our hand can be forced a bit to have to engage. And that can be really helpful for not letting a transit go by unutilized. So again, I do hope that we will try to take advantage of the passions around this, especially if there's been any sort of malaise on the other side of the water grand trines that we've been dealing with throughout November. Now, this is going to also bring up then similar themes of war and peace, potential gender issues as well, conflict and harmony, love and hate kinds of energies. So there can be even a sort of aggression around beauty or luxury. This can wind up impacting entertainment as well. Maybe there's going to be a scapegoat celebrity or something like this, or celebrities just messing up and receiving some backlash around that. Also, heavy symbolic displays around power and grandeur. Again, this is big on visibility, and people are going to be wanting to exercise, everyone loves me and I have so much power, right? So I would expect some really strong displays around that. But there's also a kind of emotional volatility with this. With those passions and tensions high, we can feel like that ignition point, like that spark point, is kind of more like a live wire, basically. And, you know, whenever you touch it, it can kind of go off. So keeping that in mind as well, that the social mood is going to be swinging from enthusiasm to frustration or anger quite a bit. And that may be based on what like side people think that they're on or anything like that, and whether things are going well or going kind of complicated at any given point. And as we all know, that can change from week to week, if not even day to day too. Now, on a global level, this one is really pretty huge. So these are the dates that I mentioned before. We had October 06, August 87, April 81, June of 68. And I think I have the signs here. So for instance, in 2006, that conjunction took place in Scorpio. In 87, it was in Leo and then Virgo. So another fire sign into an earth sign. In 81, it was in Aries. And then in 68, it was in Gemini and then Cancer. So the opposite signs to these in 1968. We also have another alignment that is speaking to 67, 68, which is the signs under which Jupiter and Saturn are in a trine to each other. So this is this is the highest of the cultural renaissance markers that we have, is that there's a lot of things that are pointing to 67, 68. But also if we look at these other dates, we have major new styles, new fashions coming in off of the heels of the old. Now, I know 81 is a little bit late. I feel like a lot of the 70s had kind of worn off really by the late 70s. So maybe that one's a little bit of a weaker case. But 87, that was when the underground, the grunge underground was really starting to take off. In 2006, this was what a lot of people would call like hipster stuff. Indie basically wound up really springing onto the scene and opening people up to be a little bit more quirky and outside the box, and not necessarily feeding into the kind of celebrity culture or the kind of 90s like pop music kind of a thing. This took us on a different kind of interesting direction that I'm certainly partial to, because that was the one when I was young. But what we see with this one in particular is that this conjunction is going to be passing through Trump's lunar eclipse, his natal lunar eclipse, in mid-December. So we may see a lot of pressure on him and his values and basically what it is that he's bringing to the table, as that is crossing in opposition to his sun and in conjunction to his moon. There are some other indications here, but I'm realizing they're kind of technical. It's speaking to his Time Lord in terms of his annual perfections as well, which is that this whole thing, that at that point when that happens in mid-December, that's going to be ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is currently on his Saturn, and he's in a Jupiter-ruled year. So it is really emphasizing mid-December for him is quite significant, and there may be some major issues of anger and conflict around, but also rallying around him. So I do see that playing out for him in particular. Additionally, the full moon in Cancer that will take place under this alignment, that's going to be around 13 degrees of Cancer. So the moon is going to be right over here. And that's going to be conjunct to the United States sun, which is right around 13 degrees of Cancer. Additionally, the Aquarius stellium that we are shifting into on the other side of this is right on the south node of the United States as well. So I do think that this is going to be impacting the states. I know I try and remind us a lot that it's not just the US that these alignments are impacting, but this one does look really big for the states. So we'll see how it winds up going. And as I mentioned in a Members Weekly video recently, if we look back to last Sagittarius season, there was a huge amount of infighting within alliances around the H-1B visas last Sagittarius season. And part of the reason for that was the squares that were taking place from late Sagittarius to late Pisces, these placements that were in late Pisces. So we'll see, but I do imagine that we're going to see those kinds of tempers flare and possibly break down that alliance a little bit more as well. So I want to just point out that there's a huge amount of energy around direct action and intensity of political activity globally here. So conflicts against government overreach are going to be a big thing here. Again, the square to Saturn and the opposition to Jupiter does indicate that there's a frustration with government and there's a frustration with law here that's going to be coming out. And this is going to be speaking to matters of social movements and especially youth movements that are coming up, possibly around this specific season with some seeds that are sown. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see the seeds that are sown around youth movements in this time frame really coming to fruition in the summer of 2026 as well. This is also, again, going to speak to conflicts, not just inside of an ideology or an alliance, but between ideologies and alliances as well. There could be some major protests and attacks and accidents. That is something that tends to take place under these alignments. Massive protests, stupid attacks is something that I saw as a major theme. And that's because the passions are high and people are being dumb because they're acting on their passions, right? That being like the first thing that I mentioned with this. A lot of us are going to be acting on our passions, but some people are unhinged and they do so in a way that's really stupid and can wind up really hurting the social movements that they purport to support. We also then have a relevance in June of 68 to Bobby Kennedy, where someone took a shot at him successfully, and then in 1981 in April. So really on the nose with these two in terms of that timing. A shot was taken at Reagan as well. So hopefully we don't see an attack along those lines, but that is a pattern that I need to point out there. Also, I would expect some media developments. We had under this in the past matters of the first precursors to the web, which were from Apple, Hyper something, I forget the name of it. That came out under that 87 alignment. And then YouTube first bought Google first bought YouTube in October of 2006 as well. Also, under the 87 alignment, we had the end of the fairness doctrine. And I think the fairness doctrine came up as quite significant. I want to say in that 68 timeframe, there was something there. I'm forgetting exactly what it was, but that did wind up coming up before too. So maybe there's something about the honesty of media or who owns it or what the interests are, and also around the web and the owners of the social media in particular at this point, or some developments in social media. So nuclear issues also came up as a major theme when I was looking back over this. So the non-proliferation treaty was signed under that 68 alignment. And then we also had a lot of testing by North Korea. I want to say that there were developments there and with Iran in multiple of these different years where there were significant developments there. Iran started pursuing nuclear energy in 2006. And I think maybe that was also when North Korea was testing. We could also, again, see some scandals coming up. And we did see the Mark Foley scandal relevant, right, come up in 2006, if we all kind of remember correctly. So that was a inappropriate behavior scandal, shall I say. So I want to point out just some little relevant things for anyone who's interested in the history, things that I collected that seemed to be on similar themes. So in June of 68, Gemini Cancer, there were student movements worldwide, of course. There were conflicts with governments across the ideological spectrum. This was in the Franco Spain. This was in Tito's Yugoslavia. This was in the United States as well. And so it's across the ideological spectrum. This was not focused on one direction or another. It was against centralized authority and against abuses of power by any sort of government, right? So also, of course, the Vietnam War was at its height around this time, but this was also kind of the point of no return in terms of the support falling away for that war as well. Again, the Non-Proliferation Treaty around this time, really intense ideological conflict. This was a very polarized time. I think that is one thing that as we look back on that 67, 68, it was so flashy culturally, and particularly with when we look back, we can see that it was very important for progressivism. But there was a huge amount of pushback and there was a lot of polarization around that point. Not everyone was on board with how that all kind of wound up playing out. So we also then had the Poor People's March on Washington in that June of 68, and that was just after King's passing. King's passing was before the triple conjunction. We also then had a lot of occupations, and we had gun control measures passed because of the continued assassinations that had taken place just before and throughout this period. So that's where a lot of that also comes from, the gun control. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe we see something like that come up again. I know that was something that I was seeing when I was looking at Mars square to Saturn, was a potential control around weapons. So maybe it's not going to be just on a kind of gun control individual level, but maybe this is not giving weapons or something to some country, something along those lines. April of 81, this triple conjunction took place in Aries. And of course, that was when the situation happened with Reagan. I'm trying to avoid some trigger words. Although I think I actually already said that word. So yeah, there was an attempt on Reagan in April of 81. This was also when the first official AIDS diagnosis took place as well. And so people then started really rallying around that. And there was that love and support, but also hatred, and that kind of connection and separation aspect to that as well. There was a major coup attempt in Thailand, which was short-lived. We're going to put a pin in that as well. There was the Brixton uprising in London under this influence, and Bobby Sands and others were on hunger strike during that alignment too. And Bobby Sands has been being invoked again because the Palestine Action is on a hunger strike as well. So in August then of 1987, we had this take place in Leo and Virgo, and the whites-only seats in the Zimbabwe Congress were abolished. So we again have some social progress that's taking place there. And fascinatingly, in August of 1987, we had the harmonic convergence come together, which was when a bunch of hippies basically wound up coming together. And they were praying together and trying to basically put out good vibes all together at the same time for the world and for peace and things like this. That was elected, though. And often we're not dealing with people who are working with the astrology, but they were. So they actually planned that harmonic convergence, which is what this is speaking to. It's a perfect word to use for this triple conjunction. They planned that for a conjunction of the Sun and Mercury and Venus and Mars. And so that it was super fascinating to look back on. And I don't know, maybe that would be an interesting idea to do something like that again. I think there are some. I think that Paladin, I think is an astrologer who has something to do with maybe like a weekly or a monthly kind of getting together and meditating together on world peace. Maybe we'll see something like that again. We did see under this influence, the Dow reached a high point. Remember those valuations going way up. So again, we may see that under this. We also had, fascinatingly, Street Fighter released, which is weird because we don't have fights in the street under this one. But we did have Street Fighter released, which was a video game that wound up becoming really, really, really big. But I just thought that was so funny because we don't have necessarily huge protests under this one. It was 87, There was, though, still a stupid hijacking of a plane. So again, these kind of stupid actions of attacks, basically. An Italian-Dutch kid wound up hijacking a KLM flight. We also, of course, had the end of the fairness doctrine in 87 in that August of 87. So bringing us to October of 2006, this wound up taking place in Scorpio. And in that year, there was a Turkish Airlines flight that was taken that landed in Italy. So that was an Italian-Dutch kid that hijacked a flight on the time before. The next time was a Turkish Airlines flight was taken and landed in Italy because someone was trying to basically get asylum, I think. This was when we had the Mark Foley scandal. There were talks with insurgents because there was an insurgency in Thailand. Remember, 2 times previous, there was a coup attempt in Thailand. We may see something, maybe these conjunctions do have some resonance with Thailand for some reason as well. And we may see some movement there. I know that things they're a little bit under the surface tense there right now. We also then, of course, had Google announcing the YouTube purchase. We had the US declaring for the first time a vital interest in space. So what would then later turn into, in terms of a vital interest, Space Force. We also then had Ban Ki-moon take over from Kofi Annan as the Secretary General of the UN. So a major movement when it came to the UN leadership, the international leadership. Yeah, we have the nuclear testing in DPRK. We have Iran announcing the pursuit of nuclear power. We had the Iraqi insurgency was kind of at its height around this period of time as well. We had the Chilean student protests against some old student university regulations that were from the Pinochet era. We also then had the trial of Saddam Hussein. We had some major fires in California. And of course, we had the Dow reach a record high yet again. So some bubbles, certainly. A couple bubbles in a row. 87, 2006, that was definitely feeding into some overgrowth that wound up turning into some weird, movements with the stock market at the very least. So yeah, with all of that said, just to kind of bring this back to an overview on this, a lot of acting on passions, connecting really deeply with what we love and what inspires us during this time, connecting with like-minded people, a huge, strong enthusiasm under the Sagittarius time frame. So pretty much in the December time frame, turning into determination to act upon that enthusiasm. Once we get into Capricorn season there, we're going to feel quite busy with projects or activities. This can speak to some new adventures or alliances, interests, hobbies, activities that we're taking up as well. Feeling very fired up, increased energy, potential for burnout, so sustainable application of energy, and just a massive emphasis and weight that is going to be placed upon the houses in our charts that are going to be receiving these triple conjunctions. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at how that's going to be impacting our houses in particular. But before we do, I want to thank you all so much for spending this time with me. I really greatly appreciate it. And again, if you don't mind hitting the thumbs up button or giving the video a hype, I would really greatly appreciate that as well. And of course, we do cover topics like this, looking at transits from a collective and a global and a personal level by looking at horoscopes for each sign. So if that is something that you are interested in, maybe consider sticking around by subscribing. And thank you so much to the members of this channel for your support. So thank you so much to Angel Niblock, JJ, Michelle Howell, Deborah Keel-Leavitt, Patrick McKenney, Jody, Anne-Marie, C. Rezer, Peace Out, Rachel Lindholtz, the Z-Man 1291, Aya, Lynn Newman, Long T Standing, the Nelson Cat Maya, Honey D. Martino, Dolly Geezy, Mango JT, B. Love, Startlingly True, Grace, Psyche Lloyd, Noah, Aquarian Antiquarian, Susan Martin, Jonathan Mason, Chad W., Ezekiel David LaRosa, SP, Teresa Jones, Sherry Lees, Horse Dog Dog Notebook, Nioke Beam, Justice League Pie, Ashley Gonzalez, Create, Gales Tarot and Astrology, Talitha McKenzie, Kay from NH, Patar Music, Pat K, Nancy Imhoff, Travis Dandro, Peta Carlin, Sarah M. Cap, Angela Lazaire, Jane Bevan, Elizabeth Drew, Helena Fisher, MD, Lori Clinchard, Tina Reynolds, Sacred Alpaca, Tanis Miller, Tanya Napolitano, Natasha P., Taylor, Indy Loon, Susie Fetter, Via T., Linda Skull, Mernouche Amiri, Novocaine, ML, Mari Garcia, D. Fish, Sabrina Nettles, Energetics with J, Someone 77, Attunement Tarot, Kimberly Orda, The Electric Cheese Productions, It All Begins at the End, J.A., Harry Affronti, Scarlet Sparks, Mike, Hookerzilla, Lynching, Helena Polyanik, and Kiska Kuznetsova. Thank you all so much for your support. Much love to you. And if you are interested in membership perks, weekly forecasts and talks and things like that, there's information in the description box below. And without any further ado, let's get into the sign by sign. All right, so for Aries, we have the Sun, Venus, and Mars are going to be moving through your 9th house into your 10th house. So we're going to see a really strong emphasis on the 9th and then the 10th houses for you. So this is going to start out, especially in the December timeframe, is going to be a major emphasis on a period of really strong motivation around personal growth and development. So this is this 9th house that we're starting with is also around your beliefs and your worldview, your sense of your place in the world. And so that is getting built up and emphasized quite strongly here. And you may decide that there is something that you want to do in order to bring a greater breadth of experience into your life. So this could be courses, learning in any way. So through books or through YouTube videos or through taking a course or anything like that. Or you could be traveling throughout this period of time and just interacting with people that you don't typically interact with in your day-to-day life, and bringing in new experiences through those interactions or those activities. And this is then bringing you to a place of a great amount of ambition and wanting to push yourself then to achieve, not just to grow, but then in the 10th house to achieve. So this is the place of your ambitions, your public image. Often this correlates with one's career. And so we can see that spark over in the 9th house, where your sense of belief, your sense of faith, your sense of optimism and growth, and again, the breadth of your experience is encouraging then a sense of ambition and wanting to achieve something greater. So this is acting quite a bit on those matters of belief and growth opportunities, and that spark can then motivate you toward a sense of greatness or leadership or trying to step up, not just to expand, but to step upward. So you could then be exhibiting really strong leadership qualities, a lot of responsibility, a lot of accountability, being really strongly in your integrity as well. And so another way of looking at this would be that enthusiasm of the 9th house turning to the determination of the 10th house. So if your beliefs, if your worldview are really getting stirred up, so even around some issue out in the world, some belief that you have about humanity, for instance, you may then be deciding that there's something that you want to step in and lead on about that. So this could be stepping up within your community or advocating, really championing that issue then, trying to get others on board, etc. But it's taking on a role based on your belief, again, about the world, about your place in it. This could also have you feeling quite busy with these really grand projects or manifestations. So for instance, if you are working out big plans, like the broad strokes of a direction that you're wanting to take publicly, this could be your career. It doesn't have to be that kind of cut and dry. The 10th house is just what it is that you're creating of yourself in the world. So this could be that big picture planning, that vision, that kind of manifestation energy of the 9th house of getting it all together, getting the picture clear in your head about how it is that you want to go about pursuing a growth spurt basically within your life. And then as that's moving into the 10th, it's becoming actionable. It's becoming that kind of executive initiative basically that you are exerting over your life. It's manifesting it into the world. You may even have a kind of realization about a role that you're wanting to take on at this point. And again, that could specifically have to do with career, but it doesn't necessarily have to. So this could be just kind of realizing something about yourself or realizing something that you care about quite a bit and coming into that and then taking that on as something that you are wanting to pursue, if that makes sense. So maybe you're learning about some kind of spiritual dimension of life or something like this, and you're deciding, I really want for this to not only be a part of me and my identity, but I want it to be part of my public image as well. And I want to encourage the kind of spread of this or the status of this out in the world. Now, the thing is, this is a lot of energy that we're going to be dealing with in these places. So there is a bit of a risk of burnout with this. So this is going to be, again, around ambitions, trying to grow. There may be kind of overextension of your energy. There could be a, work till you drop kind of an energy in this more January timeframe of this. So try to pace yourself when it comes to those grand projects, putting things out in the world, climbing the ladder, taking on responsibilities, things like this. Try to temper yourself a bit with that so that it's a bit more evenly applied, and then hopefully you won't run straight into burnout with this kind of energy here. I know you tend to go all in, Aries, but if you can try to pace yourself here, I think that would be really quite helpful to apply this most effectively throughout this whole period of time. And of course, this is then leading into a really big stellium in your 11th house in Aquarius that we're going to talk about quite shortly. But yeah, I think that is most of what I have about this kind of December, January timeframe and the really strong concentration of energy that you're going to be dealing with. So I do hope that this treats you super well. I hope it's very motivating, that it's super productive for you. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right, so for Taurus, we have this concentration of the Sun and Venus and Mars is going to be moving through your 8th house, especially in the December timeframe, and then it'll be moving into your 9th house, particularly around January. So this is going to represent a huge focus and concentration of your energies within the realm of the 8th house, which speaks to where it is that you kind of come together with others. This can be very material, so it can speak to matters of material intertwining, whether it be joint resources that you have with someone else, or loans or debts or things like this. But it can also be kind of energetic and karmic as well. So where it is that we intersect with others for better or worse on an emotional or a spiritual level as well. So there can be this kind of merging energy that comes into the 8th house there. This can also be where, therefore, energies of vulnerability or dependency or trust and things like that can wind up coming up. This is also a very esoteric place, so it can speak to the spiritual dimensions of kind of connecting with the other side, with energies that are outside of ourselves as well. So divination can show up here, certainly. Then what you're dealing with is a concentration of your energies around your 9th house. So this is going to be speaking to matters of belief, of faith, of optimism, of personal growth and development. This is also a place where higher learning and travel and anything that expands and grows your breadth of experience basically winds up coming in and winds up expanding your horizons. So these are both quite spiritual places, though there can be a sense of an anchoring with the 8th house, whereas there's much more personal freedom within the 9th house. So we could be going from a concentration of trying to sort out a lot of details with someone else, trying to manage your energies and someone else's, and you know, where you end and someone else begins. And again, that can be on a material, resource-based kind of level, but this can also be on an emotional kind of resource-based level as well. So there may be a sense of feeling pulled in deep, of really wanting to merge with someone, but possibly also seeing a bit of the weediness of that as well with Mars in that place. Mars can add some complications to that area of life. And having gone through your 7th house into your 8th, that can be a really long period of time of dealing with kind of complications with other people and so forth. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if one of the ways that you experience this, just as kind of a side message, is just having had a lot of like weight put on you from other people and just wanting to free yourself up from this. I would say even with that, as Mars starts to move on around like mid-December, but there is going to be a lot of energy around sorting that area of life up. So again, these matters of vulnerabilities, dependencies, things like this, trying to be really honest about that area, trying to bring a sense of harmonization to that area. But again, it just being kind of a lot to deal with. So I do think that there's going to be a strong kind of acting from a deep desire to free yourself up, to liberate yourself, especially if you've been specifically dependent on someone else or some other people or vice versa. If something has been feeling kind of caged in, that's going to kind of blast outward as we start to get these energies moving into your 9th house there. But again, if you've noticed, there's that esoteric quality of the 8th house as well. And then there's the spiritual quality of the 9th house too. So this can speak to digging into, maybe researching and trying to understand better and more thoroughly spiritual dimensions, connection with spiritual energies outside of yourself, things like this. And then studying that in a more broad sense as this energy winds up moving into the 9th house. So you may be seeking the understanding of other people around these spiritual dimensions. You may be looking into different traditions and ways of thought around connection, or connecting spiritually. And you may find that there's a huge amount of inspiration here to interact basically with those spiritual dimensions as well. You may also feel like there's a kind of push for you to expand, which is coming from the spiritual dimensions too. So a kind of encouragement that you can't quite put your finger on. And, often that does look like inspiration, right? Now, another way that this can definitely wind up playing out is the eighth house going into the ninth. The eighth house has to do with research as well, digging into things, trying to uncover information that may seem kind of opaque. Again, that kind of esoteric quality of that house there, and digging into it, looking under the surface in order to try and understand. And the ninth house is this more kind of out in the open, overt study and trying to learn and understand things. And again, to expand your knowledge of things, to expand through your knowledge, your breadth of experience of life and your breadth of understanding. So there's likely to be just a huge amount of enthusiasm for specifically research and learning kind of around any topic. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if this does veer into the kind of spiritual dimension as well. And so along those lines, you may feel really busy with those projects, activities that are based around trying to deepen your understanding of something. So this could even be doing research into a trip or doing research into a course or a field of study. So digging into it, trying to understand it, and then pursuing that and getting like really devoted and dedicated to that as this energy moves into that Capricorn ninth house as well. Now, one thing I would kind of warn about here a bit is there can be burnout here because there's such a concentration of energies. We can absolutely wind up overdoing it at any point in this process. So one of the things that I was looking at in terms of that is that there can be an over-identification with the eighth and ninth houses. So this can be where we encounter like gurus or people who are teaching us certain things, or even opinions, or like I belong to this group, this kind of strong identification that can go a little bit too deep and can become a bit too much of being led by something that is outside of ourselves. Now, it's great to, again, learn and experience a kind of broadening of our understanding and everything like this. But if we wind up over-identifying either with, a group of people or a teacher or a specific worldview, or this kind of in and out grouping is kind of how I'm seeing that as well. One thing is we can be put in a position to where we're needing to answer for actions that aren't our own when we over-identify with a group, which kind of sucks. And that could be a quality here. Or we can just be kind of disappointed by that as well. I thought that we were on the same page and maybe we agreed on, 60% of this, but the 40% I'm finding I really don't align with, kind of a thing. And so we can avoid that on one level by just kind of not over-identifying with certain groups or certain other people and really taking things on kind of a case-by-case basis. But also simply focusing a lot on learning. I do this quite a bit, I have to say. I mean, I have like Gemini rising and very much ruled by Mercury and Gemini. And I can just, if I get into research mode, this is something I do with the channel quite a bit because I'm always doing research, but I can over-research and I can wind up exhausting myself with the research aspects of things. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I still have to word, I still have to actually okay, then put that out there, And so, and I've done this no matter, when I was in college, all of my work basically. So that is also kind of something to keep in mind here, is to not get overly wrapped into the research aspects of things, especially if you are researching something that you plan to act upon. We can wind up getting just totally burnt out with the research phase, and then we can even wind up confusing ourselves with over research. Another thing that I tend to overdo, as well as whenever I have a relatively big purchase to come up, or even anyone around me sometimes has a big, purchase to make, they'll ask me to go and research it and things like that. And you can wind up kind of getting into the weeds around that. And then when it comes down to making a decision, you wind up really kind of caught in that analysis paralysis. So that may be something here that's also being experienced, is like not also when it comes to resources and how to expand and grow your resources, if that's an aspect that's coming in here too. You may wind up kind of researching and trying to get into, okay, what's the best course of action? This may be a kind of Seven of Cups situation where there's different options that are going to have different kinds of payoffs, where you might not have the option of taking all growth opportunities in at once. And therefore, you may get into an analysis paralysis around which one is best, where that may be a bit of a qualitative or not really being able to quantify exactly which one is going to be quote unquote best. So maybe there's a lot of stuff that's kind of up in the air about all of that as well. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's kind of a lot of what I have for you here. Real desire to kind of free yourself up to pursue a lot of growth. Again, especially if you've been feeling kind of caged in or anchored down, especially by other people recently and dealing with their stuff. And there's this kind of burst of enthusiasm that's coming through here, where you may wind up going really all in then on that enthusiasm. And that's something to keep in mind, is that we can also wind up going too far in that direction as well. So try to pace yourself as much as you can through this process. If there are people that are really over reliant upon you, this would help to amicably make that clear and be really honest about that. Of course, watching out for people's feelings, et cetera, et cetera. But to have both Venus and Mars in that 8th house, that would be about the first half of December there. That would be a really great time to kind of discuss any sort of dependencies that are just a little bit too much for you right now. But yeah, again, I think that's pretty much what I have for you, Taurus. So I really hope that these transits treat you super well. We are going to be discussing the big stellium that's going to be taking place in your 10th house here quite shortly as well. But I think that's a lot of the energies basically that you'll be dealing with for the coming month or two here. So yeah, again, I hope it treats you super well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right, so for Gemini, we have this strong concentration of energy and focus of the Sun and Venus and Mars moving through your 7th house and then into your 8th house. So this has so much to do with other people and your connections with them. It's starting out a little bit more overt and easy to put your finger on. It's moving into a bit more of a nebulous kind of space of the 8th house, where there may be a bit of interdependency building up or resource sharing kind of building up here as a focus of yours throughout this period of time. Or you may be dealing with some interesting kinds of energies on the front end of this, maybe more so in the December timeframe, that you're then needing to really reflect upon and look at from a different angle, basically, as this is moving into your 8th house. For instance, this could be certain psychological dynamics or emotional dynamics that you're needing to look at a bit more deeply and maybe even dig into and research a bit starting around the January timeframe. So maybe if you celebrate on the other side of some holidays, maybe some experiences that you've had with people over the holidays, right? So this is going to be a huge concentration around dealing with other people, connecting with like-minded people. There's going to be a lot of enthusiasm for that on the front end of this. So wanting to connect with people who share your passions, especially like philosophical passions based on their belief systems, kind of coinciding with yours with that Sagittarius out there in the 7th house as well. You may even be discovering or connecting with some people who are really inspiring you and who are kind of driving up passions within you. Again, maybe around causes, or maybe it's romantic passions, maybe it's just a kind of enthusiasm for connecting with people as well. And this doesn't just have to do with directly connecting with people in terms of a mutual connection. This could be someone kind of out in the world that's really inspiring you. But the way that this would be seen would be someone that you kind of strongly identify with. So someone that you can look to as representing a part of yourself that you're wanting to grow and that you're wanting to expand into more as well. And that maybe you can utilize in some sense as an inspirational factor, if that makes sense. So again, connecting with people quite a bit. This is going to be encouraging that a lot, but it's also going to be bringing it to your plate a lot. So there will be a lot of connection. There's going to be a lot of interaction. And if you are, for instance, a little bit more introverted, this could wind up becoming a little bit exhausting or pulling you out of your shell a little bit more than usual. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Now, I didn't quite know how to word this when I was typing it up yesterday, so I'm hoping that I can word this a little bit better here. So this enthusiasm that you're feeling around connecting with other people and so forth, this can turn into a determination to then clear relationships. And that can be in a couple different ways. So one of the ways is to just kind of clear the energy of that. So there can be, again, an over-reliance upon you or an over-reliance upon other people that can become very clear when we're dealing with these transits going from our 7th into our 8th, especially when Mars is involved here. So this can be an awareness that is being brought to you around an imbalanced, basically, dynamic within a connection that you have that you're wanting to balance out, or you're wanting to clear that out, or you're wanting to understand that better. The 8th house can wind up veering into a lot of research or trying to understand something on a deeper level as well, even on a psychological level. So trying to understand the psychological dynamics of the people that you've been dealing with quite a bit recently as well. So maybe you've even noticed, if you've been dealing with a lot of different energies, a patterning in the way that they are behaving. And maybe that's just a where people are at right now, globally kind of speaking, thing that you're dealing with, because maybe people are a little bit extra stressed or things like that. Or it might be a pattern of people, types of people that you seem to be pulling in, and you're wanting to understand that better. This could also be trying to clear out or clear the air in some connections, some specific ones, some specific one-on-one connections that you have. Or it could literally wind up being to clear out some relationships. So if there have been people who have been super extra, or they've been making themselves like kind of a burden, or they've been a bit conflictual, especially, I would say, this may be you, with that moving into the 8th house, kind of stepping back from that. And then that kind of an energy of, I feel like whenever we feel the need to step back from certain relationships, it can cause us to look over a lot of our connections for similar kinds of themes and patterns and things like that. So again, it's taking that overt, enthusiastic, we're doing a lot of connections, and we're talking a lot and exchanging energies a lot, 7th house energy, into the more scrutinizing place of the 8th house, where we're kind of weighing things up a little bit more, and we're looking under the surface of our connections a little bit more as well. Now, this can also be another way of looking at this is, and I don't have it written here, but this could be a deepening of connections as well. So for instance, if you have had a friendship start or a romantic connection start or deepen or get more, exciting or get more enthusiastic about a one-on-one connection that you have with someone, this could be the deepening of that connection in some way. And again, that can be on a lot of levels. That could be specifically with regard to commitments. That could be along the lines of opening up to each other or being vulnerable or deepening a sense of trust with each other and so forth. But it could also be making a commitment that is resource-based. So this could be getting into a financial commitment as well with someone. For instance, maybe you've been discussing business plans. Maybe you're thinking about and enthusiastic about creating a kind of business partnership or a collaboration or something like that with someone else. And now it's getting more into the nitty-gritty, and now it's getting more into the kind of commitment phase of that, where you actually are coming together on something. Regardless, 7th house, 8th house, so much to do with other people. So this is going to be a months-long focus of yours. Now, this can also have you feeling very busy as well with joint projects, and especially the expectations of others. And this is where things can get complicated when we're dealing with other people a lot, right? So we can't just kind of do what it is that we want. We can't just necessarily fly by the seat of our pants when we have the expectations of other people placed upon us, or there's this mutual kind of give and take. I'll do this, you do that. There is a need to step up then for other people in those cases as well. And this could have Gemini feeling really busy with those kinds of projects and with those expectations as well. So I would say if it would be wise to not overcommit during this period of time to other people, especially to the projects of other people. This could be great to like not overextend yourself with other people, keeping in mind your social battery and the fact that may sometimes need to be recharged as well. Basically tempering yourself and pacing yourself when it comes to connections with others. That can then lead to burnout if that's not kind of kept in check. So in cases of overcommitment or overextending yourself when it comes to other people, that can definitely be the case. Or if there are a lack of boundaries. So that may be something that you need to utilize this Mars and Venus in close connection with each other throughout this period of time to gracefully express your boundaries as necessary. So there will definitely be times in these months where you're going to need to say no to certain things, especially commitments of other people, or, hey, can you help me out with this and this, from multiple different angles, right? Multiple different people asking for your help or wanting to get together, etc. So if you are saying yes to too many things, then that can also be a major issue. Or if people are just like trauma dumping or, putting a bunch of like conflictual kind of negative or like angry or stressy kinds of energies upon you, or expecting you to counsel them through all manner of different things when maybe it looks like they're not counseling themselves or something like this. Like if there's not that mutual respect for each other's energies and things like that, that can also become something that's really going to wind up exhausting you throughout these months. So that's also something that I would really try and watch out for is any sort of overly conflictual energy or overly pushy energy coming from other people, and the impact that can have on your energy levels as well. Not to mention your enthusiasm and your passions, because that is where the Sun and Venus and Mars are. It's a bit vulnerable to what is going on with other people. So just kind of keep that in mind. You may need to make sure that your energy isn't and your passions and your enthusiasm isn't getting sapped as well throughout this period of time. And the way to do that is, for better or worse, going to have to be through boundaries. On the plus side, this is going to help quite a bit to establish those boundaries as well. But yeah, I think that is pretty much what I have for you, Gemini. This is going to lead into a very loud, very big stellium that's going to basically explode into your ninth house a bit later on, but we're going to deal with that in its own video. So yeah, I hope that this period of time treats you super well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right, so for Cancer, we have this major concentration of energies and enthusiasm and passions with the Sun and Venus and Mars moving from your sixth house of service to others, of your tasks, your routine, your daily life, of the things basically that you have to get done on a daily basis, into your seventh house of one-on-one connections and other people generally. So there is going to be an overarching theme here along the lines of service to others and how healthy or balanced that is. So this can speak definitely to working really passionately together with others or for others, trying to really make sure that you're on the same page, that you're pushing forward together on some kind of a team project or collaboration. This can be connecting with coworkers as well on joint projects and making sure that business plans are moving along very smoothly as well. But it can also definitely be in your personal life. So making plans, trying to sort out the nitty-gritty details of those plans, and then coming together with others, connecting with others, and bringing all the pieces of the puzzle together. So additionally, this can also speak to a kind of need to infuse your daily life and your connections with enthusiasm. And these energies are going to bring that in quite a bit. So that's probably going to be a major focus of yours, is just approaching your daily life on the front end of this around the December timeframe, approaching and infusing your daily life, your routines, the things that, again, you kind of have to do on a day-to-day basis with a lot more enthusiasm. So maybe this is creating a routine of something that's a little bit more exciting and making sure that you're doing that on a regular basis so that it's part of your daily life. This can also be a really strong passion and urge to sort out the details of all manner of things. So if there's any documentation you're needing to get done, I know in the States, this is about when the tax year is going to wind up turning over. And so you may now be able to start calculating and looking at, okay, I know what my numbers are for this year. Let me start to sort that out. Let me hound my, employer or, whoever may have documents that you're needing in order to file early. This could be something like that. Or if there are any debts or things like that, this can be a real deep desire to get everything hammered out, to get everything kind of put in place, basically. If you have a schedule that's been a little bit out of whack, or again, boring, if you've had a schedule that's been a bit of a drag recently, especially with Mars moving into that 6th house first, it may have felt like pushing, and it could have even felt like a little bit of burnout and kind of weirdness. You also had that Mercury retrograde in that house and everything. You may have been rethinking, I need to have some more fun here, and so therefore, again, bringing in that kind of more enthusiastic or lighthearted aspect of life into your routine. So then on the other side of this, moving a bit more into January, then your energies are going to start pushing more into the social realm. So into connections with others and pulling them into all of these energies as well. So when it comes to the plans you've made, when it comes to the details that you've hammered out, when it comes to also, again, with the 6th house, this could have been driving up a real charitable spirit in you as well, wanting to be of service to others as well, wanting to help others to sort out details in their life. So this could be food drives, or this could be, encouragement, even just kind of trying to be a spark in the lives of others as well. This could be then making a group effort of that with the 7th house there, then infusing that kind of excitement into your connections as well. And, that would make a lot of sense if, for instance, you have changed up your routine and maybe you've stepped into a little bit more of a day-to-day lighthearted energy, then approaching your connections in that way as well, and then having that energy kind of fed back to you as well. So running into with other people a little bit more enthusiasm. Now, one thing I will say here is that there can be a really strong expectations and feeling like there's a lot on your shoulders, like there's a lot of plates in the air, and that other people keep handing you more plates or keep saying, hey, let's spin together more plates, just to belabor the heck out of that metaphor. But this can be needing to make your expectations clear, your boundaries clear, your energy levels clear, and to temper the expectations that other people are placing upon you. So if there's a lot that's getting delegated to you, this may be an area where you're kind of needing to speak up, where you're needing to establish those boundaries. You can't be everything for everyone. I would really hope that you will, on the front end of this, try to make those boundaries clear as well, because of the fact that there's that great opportunity to have that enthusiasm and that energy increase with the Sun and Venus and Mars in your 6th house around your daily life. And it would suck to have that build up, that enthusiasm, and then have it sapped by just way too many people pulling on that energy and kind of, almost pulling it away from you in a sense. Now, there can also be a really wonderful spark here when we have the Sun and Venus and Mars in your 6th house around creativity. This is a place of craftsmanship, tasks, and even skills and kind of things like that you're bringing to the table, and an enthusiasm to learn and to hone those things, to hone your material skills and so forth. And so those kinds of creative impulses, which may be calling on you to kind of infuse those more into your daily life, again, those could wind up leading to some collaborations or some recognition or some new connections that you are basically establishing in your daily life. So you may be discovering something that, again, you're wanting to create more of a routine of. Let's say it's something health related like yoga. And then you're deciding, oh, my New Year's resolution, perfect timing, is to do yoga classes. And then you wind up coming into some interactions, some new friendships, something like that, that are kind of exciting through those classes and so forth, collaborating basically. This could also be not necessarily health-wise, but again, a craft that you're getting really passionate about honing. If you are then taking some classes around that, or you're going to some meetups or something like that, that could wind up bringing in some new connections. And it doesn't just have to be a physical thing. This can also be just kind of connecting with online communities and talking to more people in that way as well. But yeah, additionally, this can be new roles. So that can be as well where there's more kind of being delegated to you. Maybe there's a bit more responsibility that's being placed upon you. And you may have some enthusiasm about that, about really doing well and with a really great attitude, the tasks and work that you have for yourself, but also for those regimens of yours. So if there's been a habit that you've been wanting to create, if there's been a new regimen that you've been wanting to start, if there has been a new role that you've been wanting to take on and you have the time and energy for it, I wouldn't be shy about sparking those things off on the front end of this, because there is a kind of new way as well that people are looking at you starting around mid-December and going into January as well, as we start to get this concentration out in the 7th house. This can absolutely speak to taking on new roles because of taking on new tasks as well. But yeah, I think that that is a lot of what I have for you, Cancer. So I do hope that these alignments all treat you super well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right, so for Leo, we have this major concentration of energy and passions of the Sun and Venus and Mars moving from your 5th house into your 6th house. So your 5th house has to do with creative expression. This is a place of your pleasure, your joy, hobbies, interests. Your children also show up here, as well as friendships and other connections that are just very joyful and based in, mutual pleasure. And that is then moving into your 6th house. And that is speaking of your routines, your daily life, the tasks that you have to do on kind of a daily basis, the things you need to organize, basically all the stuff you have to do. This is also a place of health and well-being as well. So you're going to get this really nice surge and spark of energy and inspiration on the front end of this. You may wind up coming into some new hobbies or activities or, something again that you do for pleasure, some new friendships, connections, things like that. You may even, this could be like a genre. I'm looking at this with Sagittarius in the 5th and these placements here. And this could be like a new genre of something, or like a new author or a new show or something like that, even that's kind of exciting as well. It's probably something kind of broad or adventurous if there's something new that's coming in around this period of time that you're quite passionate about. Now, this can also just open you up to enjoyment, generally speaking. So if things have been feeling a little bit in a rut, this would be the perfect kind of energy to get you straight out of a rut and feel like you're able to just kind of enjoy things a lot more as well. But it is driving up a lot of passion. So I would expect that you're going to be acting on that in a different way and kind of bringing some new things and focusing basically more of your energies on this area of your life of joy and passion and things like that. Maybe you're taking some time off of work and just kind of relaxing, all of that. So acting on those passions, you're likely then to wind up bringing those new passions into a sense of a new routine. So this could be around deciding to get really into a new hobby or a new interest, or get more into, like, make more time and more focus when it comes to your daily life on something that you really love. It is kind of standing out to me that a lot of these shifts are coming up around the time when we're deciding on New Year's resolutions. I kind of realized that part of the way through recording all of this, but this could be a kind of like New Year's resolution. I'm going to have more fun. And there's this thing that I love. And if I want to make a new habit as I go into this year, it's going to be to focus more of my energy, my time into this thing that I love, so that my life is more impassioned and more exciting and things like that. So acting on those passions and getting really excited about these things that you're enjoying more throughout the December season can lead to new practices from January forward as well. So making a habit of following passions, and maybe that in and of itself, in this kind of broad sense of not sidestepping or not putting on the back burner things that you just really love, but rather when something sparks your interest, making a commitment to follow it as far as your passions wind up leading you with that as well. Maybe this is even making more time for friends, making more time for socializing as well, and connecting with people, like making more time even for a sense of community and belonging. This could also absolutely speak directly to making more time for your kids and connecting on a more kind of childlike level with them. I know sometimes it can be hard not to get into the habit, with parenting, of just needing to kind of lay down the law when you are dealing with kids, and then needing to be really practical and productive and work and so on and so forth. And it can feel like there's not quite enough time to just relax and have fun. But that may also be a commitment that you're kind of wanting to make around this period of time too, is to make a habit of spending more joyful time with your children. Now, on another level, I mean, looking at this from the inner child aspect that can also come through strongly with the fifth house, this could be stirring up the inner child. And then as it's moving into the sixth house, again, that could be making a habit of catering on some level to the inner child more than usual, which I think we could all certainly use more of that in our lives. But this could also then be looking at it from a health perspective of if you feel like you've been kind of out of balance with your inner child, or if there are any inner child wounds that you're wanting to work on. All of this energy moving then into the sixth house could be you kind of taking that a little bit more seriously, or trying to understand that in a more, I guess, on a more like logical or practical or like rational level, trying to figure that out. Maybe this is even, wanting to go into counseling or something like that and work through some of those energies as well. But yeah, so this kind of strong enthusiasm in the fifth house can also be when it's around hobbies and interests and things like that. You may be turning a hobby into a craft. That's one thing that we tend to see across this fifth house, sixth house boundary, is that the fifth house is the crafts and things that we do for pleasure. The sixth house is where we start to hone those skills as craftsmanship. So perfecting then. And that can be in order to monetize, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be, this is a skill now that I carry and I'm taking pride in doing it super well. That enthusiasm winds up turning into a determination, and that interest or hobby becomes a craft as well. And there's a lot of energy here to do that super well and passionately throughout this period of time. So if that is at all something that you're kind of thinking about, I would really encourage running with this energy to that end, because that looks really cool. Also, potentially feeling really, really busy with projects or activities. Projects and activities also show up. Again, on the fifth house side, a little bit more for pleasure. Sixth house side, a little bit more along the lines of for material purposes, or you feel like you have to on some level. And so it can be that there is both of that going on. And there can be a bit of burning the candle at both ends that can wind up showing up with that as well. So you may just have a lot of irons in the fire, basically, and a lot of stuff that's going on, and feeling like you're kind of running about with a lot of those things, and therefore feeling quite busy. So that can be wonderful, and it can carry a lot of enthusiasm, but we only have so much energy, so that can also wind up turning into some burnout if you are burning the candle at both ends. So I would really recommend, and it's kind of annoying to say, but trying not to let the enthusiasm cut too much into sleep, or, conflict too much with your sense of well-being as well. Because also with Mars heading into that sixth house first, and then getting a lot of energy into that sixth house, it can be that you're feeling exhausted by all the stuff that you're doing as well. So, as long as you do temper yourself and watch your energy levels, that should be totally fine. But that is also something to kind of keep in mind. But yeah, this is actually a really cool alignment here. Even the malefic in this case, Mars, which can be a little bit more complicated of a planet, it is exalted in Capricorn for everyone, but it does also, quote unquote, rejoice in the sixth house. And the reason for that is that Mars does things, it pursues things, it goes after things, and it has a lot of things that are really productive to go after and to do when it's in the sixth house. So it can cause a little bit less trouble there sometimes when we are kind of actively utilizing it to be more productive as well. But yeah, I think that is pretty much what I have for you, Leo. So I do hope that these transits treat you super well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right, so for Virgo, we have this major concentration of energy and passions of the Sun and Venus and Mars moving from your fourth house into your fifth house. And one major common thread with these houses is related to family. So fourth house tends to be a bit more directly speaking to either family that you live with or family of origin. The fifth house has to do with family in the sense of children or even created family like friends and people like that. So those really close to you. This can also, both of these houses speak to inner child stuff that can be going on, but this can also speak to very personal and private things as well. So the fourth house has to do with your private self, and the fifth house has to do with your own personal passions and pleasures and things like that don't so much intersect with necessarily needing to be productive or needing to feel some sense of obligation or something like that. So this can definitely have you throughout this period of time acting on a lot of personal passions and private projects and things like that of yours. There would be a lot of enthusiasm for that and a kind of like inspiration that winds up turning into a determination along these lines as well. So this could be kind of even redefining and pointing out, really shining a strong light on your inner self. And you may therefore be deciding to kind of act on that. Like, who is it that I'm wanting to be deep down? Who is it that I am deep down? And how do I then wind up expressing that in a way that is joyful and enjoyable for me? So there can be a lot of that that's coming through with all of this as well. This can also be a major emphasis and a lot of focus on those who you love and what you love, and those who inspire you and what inspires you as well. So this can be, again, the people who are really close to you, very close friends, very close family, those that you live with, and doing a lot with them, basically, like a lot of activity, a lot of being really busy and doing things together and just focusing a huge amount of your energy on that. So maybe making plans if you celebrate any holidays that are coming up, then this could be like doing a lot around the house around the holidays, or dealing with family a lot because you're making plans around the holidays or something like this, or with friends, and connecting a lot, communicating a lot, sharing your ideas a lot. This can be discussing kind of bigger topics as well, and sharing a sense of passion with them, maybe about philosophical or spiritual issues that you're discussing. Maybe this is about kind of the state of the world. You know, I think that's kind of, for better or worse, this holiday season that's coming up, it's going to be such an unavoidable topic. The whole, like, don't talk about, you know, religion and politics during the holidays the thing is just like not going to work. But yeah, this is going to be, I think, a lot of really impassioned connections along those lines as well. Now, with Mars involved, yeah, there could be some argumentation or some conflict around that. So if that's something that could come up, there is a strong possibility for that here. So, and just kind of keeping that in mind if that could be a big issue. But yeah, just kind of bringing you a lot closer to what your passions truly are, and allowing for yourself to pursue those things and to have the same dedication for your passions as you do for your, you know, worldly need to be productive and materially successful and so on and so forth. And also putting a lot of your focus and energy into, again, what inspires you. So maybe there's something that you're connecting with deep down where you are seeing even someone else that really inspires you as well. Maybe you're connecting to how family members inspire you as well and wanting to run with that. Maybe this is even like wanting to make family proud as well. That could be coming through here. But when we get into the fifth house, this is hobbies and interests and personal expression and the things that we do because we're simply inspired to do them and because we want to do them. And so there's something that's kind of stimulating you at your core that is encouraging you then to follow those kinds of passions. And it may also be really stirring up, again, that inner child that can be really joyfully healing. So there's a lot of opportunities really in the coming couple of months to look at the inner child from different directions. So for one thing, allowing for that to come out, allowing for yourself, again, to be joyful, to pursue those pleasures and things like that, to not just need to be like responsible all the time, but also to heal that. So again, especially if you're dealing with family throughout this period of time, and maybe there's some minor or major complications within family that have caused some inner child things to be a little bit more complicated. This can be just kind of releasing along those lines. Maybe you are releasing the responsibility for some of the expectations or standards that weren't for you, but were placed upon you, things like that. So when you're dealing with family, if you can just kind of do so, not to tell you what to do, but this might be kind of helpful. If someone is pushing certain buttons that they've always pushed, if you can be super compassionate with yourself around that, to where hopefully you don't even really need to feel defensive about that, but just to recognize that that is very much a them problem. And they're speaking much less to you than they are to themselves. And to just kind of allow your inner child that freedom as well, to not need to internalize the way that we so naturally do when our family pushes certain buttons, what it is that they're saying, and to not feel like what they're saying really is about you, right? That can be really joyfully healing as well, to then know that you don't need to worry as much about those buttons being pushed, because I hate to say, but it's a lot easier to deactivate some of those buttons than it is to convince certain people to not press them, right? So that may be something that's really coming through as well throughout this period of time. Yeah, also just feeling super busy with personal projects, family activities. This could be if you have children, this could be their activities that you're also kind of needing to manage their energies, their enthusiasm, throughout this season as well. I would say also, if you are taking time off from work around, if you are celebrating holidays and your kids are also maybe off from school or something like that, it may be really great to set some boundaries as well about the fact that this is also your time off and you can't just be putting out their fires and stuff like that and dealing with them and catering to them and things like that, or stressing out about them and, so on. You may also be taking this time to really, again, kind of connect in with some personal projects, some things that are just really genuinely enlivening for you to engage in. And that would also be really wonderful. Now, I will also say that, again, with Mars in these places in particular, I am looking at that as potential drama with family or with children. Children could be being a little extra demanding. So again, those boundaries being important. Family could be extra demanding or could be flaring up a bit with some conflicts or arguments or a little like bickering and having little issues with each other and so on. One thing I would say about that is that it's going to be annoying if Mars really steals the show from this triple conjunction that we're all experiencing on a personal level, which is speaking to our own personal enthusiasm. So if someone else in our life is really representing that Mars and being extra demanding and being high conflict and, making it about me, etc., and they are kind of siphoning off some of the energy reserves that we're building up through our own enthusiasm, that would suck. And there is a risk of that. So just kind of keeping an eye open for if there's a real drain around, trying not to feel bad if you don't feel super willing to just kind of pour all of your energy and enthusiasm into other people and their problems and their conflicts and their drama and so on and so forth. I know I'm kind of speaking directly when it comes to that, but I'm kind of passionate about that kind of thing. So yeah, there again, there may need to be some kind of boundaries drawn there of, look, I'm not getting sucked into this. It doesn't really matter sides or whatever. If you're going through something, you're also going to kind of like have to hold up your end of it. I can't just do all of that for you, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe certain things that also wind up kind of needing to be dealt with around this period of time in order to preserve as much of that enthusiasm for you and the wonderful people in your life as possible as well. But yeah, I think that is a lot of what I have for you, Virgo. So I do hope that this all treats you super well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right, so for Libra, we have this major concentration of energy and focus of the Sun and Venus and Mars moving from your third house into your fourth house. So the third house part of this is going to be around matters of mind and communication, the people, places, things around you. This can be where we make plans, where we coordinate with others, and it's the kind of more social dynamic of just everyday life. And the fourth house has to do with your home, your family, your roots, as well as your own like private core self. So there's likely to be a huge amount of communication on the front end of this. It might actually become a little bit overwhelming regarding plans and activities and things like this. So for instance, if you celebrate any of the holidays that are coming up, there may be just a huge amount of communication trying to coordinate all of that with each other, making plans. Where are you going? What are you doing? Itineraries, etc. And there may even be something there about travel that is also kind of getting sorted out and coordinated. The third house can also have to do with the basic like activity of transit and travel and things like that. So yeah, a huge amount of communications. You may notice that people are like reaching out quite a bit. I mean, again, that would make sense if you celebrate the holidays. People might be, reaching out because it's the holidays and saying hi and then getting into conversations and so on and so forth. Lots of correspondences and things, but this can also have to do with your working life as well and communications around all of that. A lot of like busy activity around your community, around your neighborhood, lots of errands and things like that can also show up in the third house. So just generally speaking, having a pretty packed schedule on the front end of this, and especially with regard to plans and coordinating and things like that as well. And that is then going to be moving into your fourth house. So this is then going to shift the focus really strongly toward your family and home life. This can be focusing on the physical home. So like home improvements, decorations, things like this, getting really focused in and excited and enthusiastic about all of that. Maybe you're wanting to do some home repairs or something. Maybe you're even thinking about a move. I mean, you could be doing a move as well, but you may be in the kind of planning process of that with the third house concentration going into the fourth house concentration of, am I going to stay? Am I going to move? Where am I going to go? What are all of the ins and outs of all of that going to be? But yeah, focusing quite a bit of your energy then on family as well and on community. And there may be some like community events and things like that where there's a little bit of like blurred lines between like blood family and then the community aspect as well. The third house is kind of like family adjacent, basically, so it can be your local, like your locality and local events and things like that where people come together. So there can be, again, a lot of enthusiasm that is being driven up like in the mind. So plans in the planning stages and things like this. You may have a lot of different ideas that are cropping up about things that you want to do and things that you want to sort out. And with that, then moving into the fourth house can really speak to then planting those seeds and trying to figure out, what am I going to basically do about this? What aspect of these plans is really a part of me that maybe you are wanting to kind of take some initiative on? So you may even be starting something up. Maybe this has to do with resolutions. I did notice while recording this video that switch from Sagittarius into Capricorn, or for you from the third house into the fourth house, is going to be around the time where we're starting to make New Year's resolutions and things. So this could be around some ideas that you've had about things that you're wanting to do, and that then becoming, again, a seed that you're planting at the start of the year there. Something very practical that you can get kind of determined about, that you can really see through, and that you would see as a core, like personal accomplishment, basically, is what that seed would represent. And this may be around family dynamics. This could be interacting with your family a little bit differently. This could be establishing boundaries as well with community members, with family members, something like this. This could be a determination around your home. If there's been something that's been kind of cropping up that you're wanting to change, this could be you getting kind of dead set on, I'm going to deal with it now, or this year at least. Now, you may also feel like, because we're going from this very like intellectual, mental kind of space of the third house into the fourth house being very much on you and your core, this could be that you're feeling very responsible for a bunch of different energies and all of their connection and communication and so forth with each other. Now, Mars is involved here. Mars can be a little bit conflictual. It can be a little bit dramatic as well. So that is something to kind of keep an eye open for, is you might be taking too much responsibility for smoothing over conflicts and dramas that others are drumming up with each other. So if that is the case, you may really need to kind of wash your hands of certain things and let people sort stuff out for themselves, and not let that kind of sap your own enthusiasm for things. But yeah, people might just be very extra, very kind of conflictual, very me, you know, kind of thing, pushing their ideas, pushing their beliefs, saying that like you need to carry the same opinions as they do as well, could be a thing that's cropping up. That's one thing that shows up in the third house, is those like day-to-day opinions about things and so forth. And also like other people's ideas about stuff. And so there may be a pushiness around you, around some of those things. And it might be necessary to just kind of gracefully, with Venus there as well, establish those boundaries and just not engage on that level if you're not wanting for some of that enthusiasm and energy to be channeled into a conflict that you might not care about that much anyway, right? So yeah, feeling kind of responsible for a bunch of different energies. And it could be on that level of people kind of butting heads or trying to butt heads with you. But it could also just be, again, coordinating and being like the anchor of the coordination. So everyone kind of touching base with you. You might also just kind of feel like there's a lot on your plate in terms of your schedule. It might be a bit heavy to try and sort out around this time. But yeah, I will say also there is a bit of a risk of burnout here from overextending yourself, from stressing your mental faculties and your psyche a bit too much, from stressing out your mind too much, too many conversations, too many different threads going on, especially if you're introverted. That is something to keep in mind. And if any drama winds up arising that you are then having to sort out or deal with, or feel like the onus is upon you to bring balance to that with the Libra energy that you have. So trying to avoid that, especially because for you, it could feel like a bit tired of dealing with all of the energies and the communication and the coordination and blah, blah, blah. And then the exhaustion could run a little bit deep when those energies are all running into your fourth house. That can be like at the core of your being. And that kind of exhaustion sucks. So try not to like run yourself straight into that kind of a situation. I would definitely recommend making sure that there are some boundaries in place so that you don't wind up at that point on the other side of like the new year, right? So yeah, I'm trying to think what else. I think that's a lot, pretty much, of what I would want to say about this for you. So yeah, I do hope that it treats you super well. It should be a pretty enthusiastic and solid energy to work with, as long as there's not too much opportunity for people to be grating at you or like bitching and you know, needing to be sorted out and needing to be organized and so on and so forth. So yeah, as long as that's held at bay, then this is actually a really wonderful energy that should be, if it doesn't burn you out, it should actually be infusing you with quite a bit of energy there. So yeah, I hope it treats you super well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right, so for Scorpio, we have this big concentration of energy and passions playing out in your second house and then in your third house. So This is going to start out in your second house of personal resources, your own sense of personal security, material security, emotional security, as well as your finances tend to play out in that second house. And then that will be moving into your third house. And this is a bit more cerebral. It has to do with your mind as well as communications, the people, places, things around you, plans, coordination, daily schedules, etc. So there's going to be a strong emphasis on the front end of this around your own personal security. So you may be figuring out budgets. You may be trying to plan for the year ahead. You may be looking at what you're bringing in, what's going out. You may be making some kind of decisions around that in order to give yourself a greater sense of like financial freedom. And especially for you, there is a major importance of understanding that security is for the sake of freedom. With Sagittarius in your second house, security for you is going to look a little bit different than it does for other people, which is being able to kind of call the shots for yourself and not need to necessarily worry about rocking the boat and things like that. So there is that strong emphasis on security as freedom, and that then leading to some new plans. So I do feel like there's this kind of financial planning aspect that's going on here. But again, keeping in mind that it's mostly focused around trying to give yourself the freedom to be enthusiastic and to not have to worry about matters of security or insecurities, or are things going okay, or, do I need to worry about this and that, and so on and so forth. It looks to me like you're being really proactive about wanting to know exactly where you're standing before you move forward, right? So there is also with this alignment then the ability to connect really deeply with your own values and to look at what it is that you do value. What do you prioritize? What's important to you? What makes you feel safe and secure? What makes you feel like you're kind of on a firm foundation? What are your convictions, right? So what is it that you're willing to stand on? And then that moving into the third house can be bringing you into other people. And so there may be a focus on reinforcing or reiterating to yourself what your values are, what's important to you, what your priorities are, et cetera, et cetera. And then that's moving into the third house of other people. You can be then really connecting with others along those lines. So this could bring you very much into contact with like-minded people that you enjoy just kind of connecting with quite a bit, that there may be some lively conversation with. Maybe you're making plans with people that are, again, of a similar kind of mindset, that share your values as well. This could even be connecting with people that make you feel safe and secure. So also on an emotional level. So if you've been reconnecting with a sense of what does make me feel safe and secure and like I belong and like I'm solid and so on, focusing on what it is that you are capable of growing and so on, the direction that you're growing in and so forth. This could remind you, for instance, of certain people who have been more supportive of that than maybe some others. And maybe therefore you're choosing who it is that you're connecting with based on, again, not just your values as in your convictions, but also your values as placed upon yourself and trying to honor that then as well. So there can be a really strong enthusiasm then again around certain ideas, certain values, where you stand on certain things like that. And then that turning into a sense of determination when it comes to your activity. So for instance, if something that again, you value is your security and so forth, which again, a lot of these themes are going to wind up overlapping like that. And you're looking at your finances, you're looking at your budget and so forth. This could then have you reaching out to connect with other people, to look for opportunities, to open up doors. And maybe that's an aspect of the financial planning then that is playing out here, is just okay, I know where it is that I'm standing, and now I want to make some new plans going forward. This is where the determination, that Capricorn energy, is coming in. So how are you going to take the resources that you have, including your skills and abilities and things like that, and capitalize on those, basically? What's the plan there? There's an aspect of it that's very likely to be social and communicative. So maybe, again, you're reaching out, you're looking for opportunities adjacent to you. You may be looking for either ways in which you can connect with more clients if you do client work, or it could be that you're looking for additional opportunities in terms of networking for a different job or something like this. You may be getting really serious about your resources and wanting to maybe bring in more finances, and then recognizing, hey, there are some certifications or something like that that I could get that could wind up boosting my resume or whatever. So there's this kind of enthusiasm about where you stand and wanting to shore that up and wanting to build that up. And then that is working its way into the plans that you're making in order to push that forward, right? I hope that I'm kind of clear on that. I'm definitely recording this under a Mercury retrograde. So yeah, this can also have you feeling quite busy with the projects or activities that you're doing with those around you. So the third house being the more communicative aspect of that, coordinating people when it comes to the activities that you're doing. So this could be also, if you celebrate any of the holidays that are coming up, coordinating with family, trying to figure out those plans, those activities, what kinds of things are you going to be doing together? What kind of resources are going to be needing to be applied to that? Do you have the energy for all the plans that you're making? That may be something to kind of keep in mind as well, because there is a bit of a risk here of burnout if the energy application, the utilization of your energetic resources toward your plans isn't sustainably applied. So this could be, yeah, let's pack the itinerary, and then you realize, wait, this is my time off or something like that, and I haven't rested, right? And so now I'm a little bit burnt out before I even, go back to work. If, for instance, you are taking time off for holidays or something like that. So yeah, do keep resources in mind. Again, when it comes to the plans and the activities and things like that, I know, again, if you're celebrating holidays around this period of time, you might want to be a little bit more conservative with some of the resources. You might not want to go totally all out, because that might put you in trying to figure things out after the fact mode. That enthusiasm of Sag in the second house could be super generous, and then the Capricorn aspect in the mind on the other side of that is, all right, now I need to go back and look at how am I going to balance out. Yeah, I would just say try to make sure that the energy, the resources that you are expending during this period of time, that is tempered, that's applied sustainably. And as long as you do that, then this should be really nice. Again, there's a really wonderful opportunity to connect with very like-minded people around this period of time, because of how much you've been encouraged to kind of come back to a sense of your own values and your own value throughout this period of time. One last little caveat to all of this too is that with Mars there moving into the third house, this could speak to some people being a bit high conflict around you, and people being kind of over the top, a bit extra, a bit demanding, and the communications that are coming up toward the other side of this whole transit being a bit too much. So again, there may need to be some boundaries with acquaintances and peers and people like that. And try not to allow for other people to control your plans such that they are signing you up for things that you're not that enthusiastic about, because that could run you also kind of straight into burnout. So yeah, just another little caution there. But yeah, again, other than all that, it should be a pretty solid transit for you, and I hope it treats you super well. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right, so for Sagittarius, we have this major concentration of energy and focus and passions going from your first house into your second house. So the Sun and Venus and Mars will be in your first house of yourself and your self-image, and it will be moving into your second house of your resources and your values. So this is going to be really encouraging the heck out of you to be acting on personal passions and personal goals throughout the front end of this transit. So this should be driving up a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitability, a lot of joviality, a lot of fun as well, a lot of like adventurousness. All of that is going to be really amplified throughout December for you with these transits in your first house. And a lot of that is going to be focused around you and yourself there. Now, a lot of that is going to be your own energy, and that is wonderful because then you have a lot of ability to focus on your own, again, personal goals and things like that. But some of that, when we get transits to the first house, can be coming from the outside as well. So it may feel like there's a lot of people reaching out and a lot of expectations or demands on some level being placed upon you. So lots of just kind of people saying, hey, let's do this, let's do that. And hey, will you take care of this for me? And hey, I was thinking about you, and so on and so forth. And when you are pursuing personal goals, sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming when you're also then needing to juggle a bunch of other people's energies, which can absolutely be the case when we get these like kinds of concentrations of energy in transiting through the first house there. So really wonderful kind of an alignment there, but it is going to need to be tempered a bit. And we're going to talk about that as well. But connecting with what you really, really enjoy, what truly inspires you on a personal level, it's going to be super important here. This is likely to be quite distinctive as well. This could have you really standing out around this period of time too. There's going to be a lot to connect with, like a lot available for you to wind up connecting with and for you to wind up learning more about yourself through. So there's going to be a lot for you to identify with, basically, and to wind up pursuing very enthusiastically around this period of time. And then that's going to wind up, that personal enthusiasm is going to wind up feeding into the second house, which again has to do with your resources and your values, but also your growth. So this is kind of a really wonderful 1-2 punch to this transit, because it's going from this place of a lot of just fire and enthusiasm and can do, excitability. And it's moving into this more grounded place around your personal growth as well, and how it is that you can apply your resources to what it is that you're enthusiastic about. So when it comes to feeding your energy and your resources into something that you're wanting to grow with, this winds up kind of grounding that enthusiasm into form. And it's also going to speak quite a bit to your values. So you may also be getting fired up about your viewpoints on things and what you feel like is your role in the world, and how it is that you feel like you can step up and you can contribute and things like this. And so a lot of this with Sagittarius there could be around personal beliefs and things like that, that winds up then leading into this place of this foundational kind of convictions and values that you carry as well. What is it that you value in your life? And planting seeds there. So I absolutely love the way that transitions from your own enthusiasm into this cardinal earth energy of initiating something that's going to be really long lasting for you out of that excitement as well. So again, this can have you feeling really, really busy with opportunities and personal goals, and that being two different sides of what's going on for you. The opportunities coming from the outside. Hey, let's do this. Hey, let's connect on that. Hey, do you want to make this plan and do this thing, and so on and so forth. But then also the personal goals and what it is that you're hoping to apply your energy toward. These can be many, many different things. So it's many different kinds of irons in the fire and more coming at you, basically, again, from the outside. So it's likely that you're going to feel super busy. And that can be absolutely wonderful, especially if you are extroverted. But if not, and if this happens in bursts and you're kind of going all in at times, it can have you feeling like you're kind of burning the candle at both ends, but it can also feel just very unsustainable and then kind of lead you into a wall of running out of those energetic resources, which are represented kind of in both the first and second house, but especially the second house then. So if you don't want to kind of run into a wall here and you'd rather ground this into form, into reality, then I would definitely recommend making sure that you are applying your energy to things very sustainably throughout this period of time, and your resources as well. So material, emotional, energetic resources as well, making sure that those are being applied in a way that you can basically make it through these couple of months that we're going to have these alignments here. One other thing that I would really emphasize with all of this is that it should be very helpful for your confidence too. So it will be, again, driving up that personal enthusiasm and that can-do attitude, and like looking at yourself in this kind of excited way, right? Like, I can achieve this and I can do this and I have the energy for this and I can make it happen and I can manifest, this and that and so forth. And then moving into that second house of recognizing your value, recognizing what resources you're bringing to the table and things like that. So it's working on both of those levels of personality, but also what it is that you're bringing to the table, and really stirring up a lot of confidence and enthusiasm and energy around all of that too. So if you have been wanting to work on confidence and things like that, this would be a really wonderful time to focus in on that quite a bit as well. But yeah, I think that is pretty much what I have for you, Sagittarius. So I do hope that these alignments treat you super well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right, so for Capricorn, we have this major concentration focus in on your 12th house, moving into your first house. So with this conjunction of the Sun and Venus and Mars in your 12th house, this is going to be really lighting up and infusing with a lot of passion your inner world. So this can be time that is spent in solitude. This can be time that is spent in like meditation and spiritual practice, things like this. If you're a writer or a creative type, it's likely going to be really lighting up those aspects of your life, those creative, imaginative aspects of your life. But it's also just going to be kind of like lifting your spirits internally. This can be pointing directly to some subconscious things that kind of need to be worked through, and offering a lot of energy and basically wherewithal to be able to work through those things. So if there has been any sort of psychological or emotional complications, or even karmic processing and things like that that you've been wanting to do, this should be able to help a lot with that. But then it's going to be moving into your first house, and it's going to be really lighting up that house of you, yourself, your conscious self, and your outward self as well, and the way that you kind of interface with other people and what other people are bringing to you as well. So there's going to be a major focus on that inner world, and then we're going straight out into the outer world. So I would say with those, when we get these kinds of highlights going from the 12th to the 1st, I do always recommend really working with the transits that are in the 12th. That is all of that internal work, processing things, getting all that stuff kind of out of the way so that you can make the best of the first house transit when it winds up coming up, and you're not kind of bogged down by any unnecessary baggage or things like this. So that internal spark, that internal inspiration is really going to drive up a lot of passion in you. You may be working behind the scenes on sorting out where that's going to be playing out. If this is just a kind of spark where you're not exactly sure where it's going to lead you, this can be spending some time deciding what it is that you're wanting to pursue. This could be you looking kind of subconsciously at maybe what holds back you feeling like you are, or being who you want to be and how you want to carry yourself. So for instance, if like a lot of people, you would like to have more confidence, or you would like to be kind of more go-getting or more outgoing, or whatever it is, just kind of freer in terms of extroverting, then this can be highlighting what it is behind the scenes that might kind of hold you back from doing that, lighting that up and pointing that out so that you can release that ahead of time. So those passions, that internal inspiration is going to be turning very directly toward your personal goals then, as we start to move more toward January and into January. So you should feel very ambitious at that point. But again, working on the internal stuff is going to be really wonderful if you can. Also, really highlighting true passions and your true desires. So that coming up from the subconscious. This isn't really intermediated by like society. This is coming from a place that is within you. So it's going to bring that out again from the subconscious right into your conscious so that you can bring that kind of unique aspect, that very true aspect of yourself out into the open and start to work with it more. This is also going to help a lot with enabling personal healing, which can then turn into a sense of really confident determination. So improvement of your mood, improvement of your kind of outlook, especially your internal outlook, then infusing your direct action, the willpower that you're able to exercise over yourself and over your own life. Additionally, you may feel very busy as well in private. So doing things in solitude, you may have a lot of private projects that you're working on, private activities. You may be, again, if you are a creative type, you may be very much working behind the scenes. It may feel like your efforts are kind of going unnoticed throughout this like beginning period of time of December, basically. But once this moves into your first house, it should be much more apparent that what you're doing is appreciated. And you may even be able to take some personal works or some things that you've done privately and put them out into the open and get some really excellent feedback on that as well. So again, you may just be working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Now, this whole alignment from the 12th house to the first house can also be calling your attention back to yourself. So really shining a spotlight on you and what you like and what you don't like, what you're comfortable with, what makes you uncomfortable, all of these kinds of questions, your inner world, your outer world. It's bringing it back to this very much you focused aspect of the chart, which is the Eastern horizon. And it's asking you to focus in on this area. So this wouldn't quite be the time to be backburnering yourself necessarily, although these transits as they're going through your 12th, they may feel like that's something that you should do, is to kind of backburner yourself or not take as seriously what it is that you're wanting, things like that. This is really about reinforcing the significance, the importance of what's going on for you emotionally, psychologically, psychically, behind the scenes. And also just what kinds of energies it is that you are genuinely wanting to interface with and interact with and engage with. So again, I wouldn't be focusing so much on, oh, how can I be of service to others throughout this season? Or how can I be more giving? Or, you know, this person and this person need me to do this and that. And I'm tired, but I'm just going to do it anyway because I need to do that. This is really encouraging, to use a cliche, filling your own cup first. Following your own passions, following your own path as well, not letting the viewpoints and judgments of others negate or over influence the directions that you're taking, things like this. This is very much a personal affair for you that's going on throughout this period of time. But I would also recommend to pace yourself. When we're doing a lot of healing work, it can be super exhausting. And we don't need to, just because there's a minute amount of energy left, funnel it into self-improvement and healing and being better and just loading and loading and loading up on healing. Now, that can always be pretty wonderful, but we can also wind up tapping ourselves out through healing as well. So that is something to keep in mind, that you are a human being, you are allowed to be imperfect. And so just because there is this focus on healing doesn't mean you need to be doing it 24/7. Like, also have fun, right? Also feed into your imagination. Also do what truly lights you up. This is about elevating your mood big time with the Sun and Venus and Mars and Sagittarius in your 12th house. That is fundamentally about lighting yourself up inside. But also watch out for an over kind of determination, again, especially as we start to get closer into January. There's likely to be a huge amount of determination that you suddenly have a lot of energy for pursuing and achieving your goals, becoming the best version of yourself, really pushing yourself, you know, and all of that. And so I would just really recommend try not to overextend yourself, even on a literal level. Mars in the first house can definitely physically overextend you. So for instance, if you're working on a new health routine or something like that, I would definitely be doing lots of gentle stretches and things like that. But this can also just kind of push you to really go after your goals full throttle and we only have so much energy, and there's only so many hours in the day. So again, I would really just recommend checking in, making sure that, for instance, you're not putting in 16 hours a day, because you just are really going to need to pace yourself. You'll be able to get more done under this influence. So I wouldn't be stressing about just filling every hour of your day with pushing yourself to improve and be your best and so on and so forth. There's the energy of that here, but also do remember to have fun as well. And just, this is about getting you to a place where you're more comfortable and where you are more happy. And remembering the significance of that throughout this broad, really couple of months here that you're going to be working with these guys. So yeah, I think that is pretty much what I have for you, Capricorn. So I really hope that these transits treat you well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right. So for Aquarius, we have the focused energy and concentration in this area of your 11th house, moving into your 12th house with the conjunction of the Sun and Venus and Mars. So this is going from a very, very social place to a very solitude kind of oriented place. So it's very likely that you're going to feel like there are a lot of connections that you're making, like you're needing to manage a lot of your social relationships, like you are kind of putting yourself out there, like you're getting a lot of attention and notice. And there may even be a quality of that, of feeling a bit overwhelmed by that, and then kind of pulling inward a bit more toward January. So there could be some major inspiration socially. Maybe there is a cause that you're getting excited about, or there's some kind of aspiration or hope that you're pursuing in the social sphere. Maybe you are just kind of socializing quite a bit, connecting with friends, colleagues, groups of people around you, your community. Maybe there's some events that are getting planned. And maybe people are just kind of connecting to you more, being a little bit more what you might consider even kind of demanding upon your time and your energy. So if you have a lot of things going on with different social groups and everything, they might not be fully aware of the fact that you have all of these different kinds of obligations, basically, to different groups and so forth. And that may also be kind of complicated because you may be very excited about all of these different things, and yet still feel like it's just a bit too much in terms of what's being expected of your energy. So yeah, then we wind up seeing you turn a bit more inward in the moving into January period of time, and kind of privately pursuing some goals, some aspirations, getting determined, utilizing that inspiration, utilizing the kind of social upheaval and excitement that you've been dealing with throughout December, and putting that more into, again, these kind of private goals. Getting really determined to achieve some aspirations, but from behind the scenes. So trying to be maybe a little bit less distracted or distractible, and just focus on what's really significant and important for you in your own life, and building up toward some really significant personal goals as well, which we might see then in the following few weeks as these planets even move into Aquarius. There's going to be a huge amount of energy that we'll talk about shortly in that first house of yours, which is going to be around personal goals. So it almost looks like there's this kind of gathering of social forces towards specific goals or aspirations, putting a lot of work into it behind the scenes, maybe even building up a little bit of confidence around that, and then going for it in the late January into February timeframe. You may even at some point, because these are really passionate energies, the Sun, Venus, and Mars up in the 11th house, there may even be a little bit of drama that winds up arising that can become a bit trying. And that could even be what winds up causing you to try to remove a lot of distractions around this time too. So you may be kind of stirred up by some drama that's arising. Or again, people might just be kind of extra demanding on your time. So it will be important on the front end of this in the December timeframe to keep in mind that if there's a need to establish some boundaries, better to do that sooner rather than later, because you could run into some major burnout issues with so much concentrated energy in these areas. And if that winds up going kind of negative, or it goes kind of dramatic, and people are relying on you to take sides and they're trying to get you on their side, etc., then that can be really exhausting. And then that could also be what winds up, again, kind of pushing you back into not wanting to be distracted, not wanting to deal with people's stuff, and so on and so forth. Now, you may also feel stirred up by some social concerns, and this could be causes that you're wanting to contribute to. That can definitely be the case when we're dealing with 11th, 12th house. But it could also be social concerns like whether you belong, or whether there are certain complicating energies in the social groups that you belong to. So people who, again, kind of stir things up. Maybe they are causing a little bit of drama or something like this. And this may wind up requiring some level of closure around that. So you may legitimately be taking a step back from a group if it goes a bit overboard in December. But it may also require some processing. And that may be also what you are taking some time out to think through and to work through in private on your own. Additionally, if there are any issues around a sense of belonging or a sense of social pressure, weird influences that might be had over you, that people might be kind of bringing to you. I'm so sorry. This is Mercury retrograde. I don't really know how to say this very basic thing. Any sort of negative influences around, basically, or people bringing complicated energies and so forth. This could also wind up causing you to look at why certain people might have influences over you, or what the impact of social groups are on you. Maybe there is some quality of social anxiety to this that kind of winds up becoming clear and that you wind up processing. Also paying attention to, do you feel an obligation to say yes to things? Do you feel like there's going to be something wrong or someone's going to get upset if you say no to certain social occasions and things like that? Do you feel like you can truly be yourself around the people that you know? Or do you feel like there are certain aspects of yourself that you kind of hide away? And these could all be thoughts and things that are coming up for you to process as well, in order ultimately for you to be able to better enjoy that 11th house there. But it may wind up, especially in the December timeframe, kind of coming up to a fever pitch. So again, if those have been issues for you at all, they may get kind of triggered. And if that's the case, I would try not to be too hard on yourself. Just maybe taking that step back if you feel the need, trying not to worry as much about social judgments and things like that. I know it's so much easier said than done. And then going really within and processing, where does this come from? Is there a root that you can get at, that you can uproot as well? And yeah, ultimately, this just looks to me like you're really utilizing your social battery quite a bit. And then, for instance, if you celebrate the holidays and you have a bunch of holiday plans, then just kind of taking a step back and recharging on the other side of that. But yeah, I think that is a lot of what I have for you, Aquarius. So I really hope that this transit treats you super well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. All right. So for Pisces, we have this conjunction of the Sun and Venus and Mars, bringing a huge amount of energy and concentration and focus to your 10th house and then to your 11th house. So for you, a lot of this is going to have a huge common thread, which is regarding your public life and your public role and your social role, basically. So this is going to be speaking to matters of your ambitions, especially in your career, if you have a kind of traditional career path, if not just with regard to your public image and things like that, your personal ambitions, what it is that you're trying to kind of create of yourself in the world. So there's a huge amount of enthusiasm for that. You may be making some real strides around your career. You may be stepping up to, like, there could be a promotion here or something like that. You may be stepping up into a role that you had been aiming for in the December timeframe, or hearing something about that. And then as that triple conjunction winds up moving then into your 11th house, what this can wind up doing is opening you up to more possibilities. The 11th house has a little bit more to do with like hopes, dreams, aspirations, what it is that you are kind of aiming toward. So if you have stepped up in the December timeframe, or even if you have readjusted or rather redefined for yourself notions of success and so forth, then this could be opening up some new avenues in terms of your hopes, dreams, aspirations, and what it is that you're aiming at, and getting then really determined to pursue those things. So the enthusiasm paying off in the 10th house, turning into determination to capitalize even more so on the success that you've already had. Or again, a redefinition of success. This can absolutely be just kind of reframing things. If you've had a lot of like a spotlight shown on your house of success and what that means to you and what it is that you're trying to create of yourself in the world, if that spotlight winds up showing to you, hey, maybe I'm not quite as connected to this older notion of what it was that I was trying to achieve, then that can be pulling you into a new direction, which would again bring us back to the 11th house of new aspirations and things like this. So you can also then be connecting with very like-minded people to pursue shared goals. Now, this can be on the career front for sure. This could be allies in the workplace, or this could be colleagues that are on side and that you're kind of mutually helping each other. But this can also be with regard to like the way that the world is working or your community or something like this. So when we're looking at that 10th and 11th house from a broader perspective than just career, that can also be what is the change that you're wanting to see in the world and how do you create that, right? To use a cliche here. So that's very 10th house, 11th house there is how do you view your role in the world and the contribution that you're able to make? And this can be connecting then with like-minded people to pursue those goals and that change together as well. So yeah, public success and recognition can also wind up opening doors again to new aspirations or new hopes, new goals, but this can also open some social doors. So this can be a level of recognition to where you're getting recommended to someone else, or you are making social connections based on some level of success or recognition that's coming to you in the public arena as well. And yeah, ultimately, this is going to be having you feel quite busy with your public life, reaching higher, really trying to climb the ladder, if again, that is at all related to your particular notions of success, but pushing yourself, feeling really enthused and determined throughout this period of time in that public arena. Now, this may wind up pulling you very much out of the like domestic sphere or your private life. This could be a lot of extroversion for Pisces. So do try to keep that in mind, is that there can be this kind of overwork or overextending yourself in that social sphere. And keeping in mind, again, if you are an introvert, to recharge your batteries as you are able to. And then also if you have family, just kind of trying to keep them informed on what the pressures are that you're dealing with or what it is that you're trying to achieve, so that they don't feel like you're just kind of not paying attention or something like that. Letting them know that you've been quite busy and that you've been really pushing yourself and maybe why as well. I would also say if you are looking for opportunities when it comes to your working life, if you're looking for a different job, or if you're looking for a job, or if you're looking for more clients or something like this, I would really recommend putting yourself out there as much as you can. Again, I know that Pisces can be kind of introverted. I've got a bunch of Pisces in my chart, and that can be kind of difficult, but it would be really, really, really helpful. And you should be able to get a lot of yeses in that arena. So trying to network with people, trying to join social groups and things like that, maybe putting your resume, your CV out there, maybe letting trusted people know that you're open to opportunities and things like that. I think that that could be really good. Oh, also one other little thing here is that with Mars in the mix here and just so much energy, so many different energies in these places, I would try your best to avoid workplace drama or colleague drama or friend drama, public drama, basically. I would really try to avoid that as much as possible, because there can be a major inclination for those things to wind up arising when we have these three energies in particular all together in this one area of the sky. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have for you, Pisces. So I really hope that this transit treats you super well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me.